partially nude body of a young female is found fiendishly posed in New York Central Park, the victim of a savage beating and strangulation.
That was the work of a real psychopath.
Police identify her as a popular 18-year-old Soho resident from an affluent family.
It was a terrible, terrible time for the family and for the loved ones.
Friends tell police of her companion on the previous night, a strikingly handsome 19-year-old casual acquaintance, one who appears to have deep, fresh scratches on his face and body.
They looked like scratch marks from a human ant.
An arrest is made, and when the media gets a glimpse of this seemingly wholesome, well-dressed 19-year-old, they dub him the preppy killer.
Came across as being a magnetic, interesting person because he was just so good looking.
But how could a teenage tryst
Looks like someone's getting lucky tonight.
end in murder?
No one deserves what happened to her.
Sensational tales of drugs, alcohol, and sadistic sex will emerge.
The headlines were immediately rough sex and porn.
But the truth will be more disturbing
What are you doing?
than any tabloid could ever dream of.
It's only a very callous stranger that leaves a body exposed in that way.
It was enthralling to the media.
Meet Robert Chambers.
I'm Rob.
Jennifer.
Just your average high society preppy until murder made him famous. Dawn, August 26, 1986. A bicyclist riding through New York's Central Park spots what she thinks is a homeless person asleep beneath a tree. As she looks closer, the cyclist sees the shape of a young, half-naked woman. Clothing from her upper body has been pushed up to her neck, and her skirt is pulled up around her waist. Cuts and bruises cover her exposed skin. As the cyclist leaves the scene to get help, she notices a young man sitting on a nearby concrete wall, watching her. The brutal 1986 slaying of 18-year-old Jennifer Levin was a tragedy resulting from a perfect storm of sex, money, and drugs. It is also a mystery debated to this day. The speculation surrounding Levin's death fueled a news media frenzy and spawned books, movies, episodic television, and even pop songs. While various theories into her death still remain, the one undisputed fact is that the life of young Jennifer Levin was appallingly cut short by Robert Chambers. But why did he do it? The future preppy killer is raised in a modest household by his mother, an Irish immigrant who works as a private nurse for John F. Kennedy Jr.
His mother, who was very ambitious for him, wanted to put him in the same private school, same grade school that John had gone to.
Working for New York's elite pays dividends to Mrs. Chambers. Avoiding hefty tuitions, she is able to use scholarships to get Robert into higher-level prep schools.
What she was doing was placing him amongst people that he couldn't compete with, even be equal to.
Robert Chambers was different than the wealthy kids around him. He envied them and their lavish lifestyles.
You could see that in him. I think there was a desire to have more.
But wherever he went, he messed up completely.
After getting kicked out of one semester of college, he moves back home in 1986. Jobless, but with an acquired taste for wealth and social status, Robert uses his best asset to fit in with the young Manhattan elite.
Robert Chambers looked like he could have been a long-lost Kennedy. He's tall, he's athletic, he's well-built, he has blue eyes, perfect hair, nice teeth.
If he had just taken his good looks and some charm school lessons, he could have walked into any office in the city and he would have been running it within a couple of years.
Robert also acquires a taste for the drug of choice at the time, cocaine.
He looked on the outside like a Kennedy, but he acted totally different.
Robert begins to burglarize homes for easy money.
He morphed into a full-time thief because of his constant need for addiction. He needed the drugs and he needed the money.
In June of 1986, Robert Chambers is at a bar on Manhattan's wealthy Upper East Side, popular with local students. Dorian's Red Hand.
It was a place where all these rich kids would come in, all underage.
Dorian's is ripe for the rich, good-looking, and anyone under the legal drinking age with a credit card and a fake ID.
They had almost unlimited money because it wasn't theirs, it was mom and dad's money.
Also in attendance is 18-year-old Jennifer Levin.
Jennifer Levin was voted best looking in high school. She was cute, she was vivacious, she was bubbly, she was outgoing, so she really stood out.
She had the whole world in front of her, you know?
Here a minute.
So what was that all about?
Did you see that guy I was talking to?
Yeah.
He said he thought you were the most beautiful girl he's ever seen.
Shut up.
Swear to God.
She'd heard about this Robert Chambers. She'd seen him at parties. He had looked the other way. He wasn't interested in her.
He wants to talk to you.
Now?
He said his girlfriend's friends are here. He wants to talk to you outside.
There he goes.
You gonna do it?
What the heck?
She was all over the fact that, you know, he was paying any attention to her at all, even though he had some other girlfriend at the time. It's just the way those kids were.
Outside of Dorian's, Jennifer Levin meets the man who would ultimately take her life.
Hi,
Hi,
I'm Rob.
Jennifer.
Robert and Jennifer meet, and instantly there's a connection.
I hope you don't think it's too forward.
Came outside, didn't I?
They sit there and talk for hours. It almost looked like the beginning of a beautiful relationship.
A few weeks later, Robert and Jennifer meet again, and this time they take things a little further.
You know, I usually don't kiss until the third date.
Oh yeah, me either.
I definitely don't do that until the third date.
I'm sorry. You're just so incredibly beautiful.
You're forgiven.
You kids doing okay?
Doing fine, Mom.
They spend the night together, but not like you'd think. Jennifer tells her friends, no, they didn't have sex, they didn't sleep together. They were actually making a connection.
The whole night.
No way, Jennifer. And you didn't have sex?
No, we didn't. He didn't pressure me into doing anything I didn't want to do. He was a total gentleman.
But Jennifer isn't the only girl that Robert is seeing.
Oh.
Cool.
Yeah?
Yeah.
He wasn't looking for a relationship with Jennifer Levin. Robert Chambers had another girlfriend of his own, a 16-year-old girl named Alex who was pretty cute.
It was very casual in that group. That was kind of the way they ran.
Meanwhile, Robert stretches not only his romantic limits, but his financial ones as well.
You can't just keep running a tab. I don't do that for anybody else in here.
I know, Jack. I'll have the money, man. I promise, okay?
Excuse me, can I go get a drink around here?
Hey, what are you doing here?
What are you doing here?
Can we get the lady a vodka cranberry, please?
She wanted to snag Robert, and it would have seemed to her an achievement to have had sex with the handsomest guy in their set.
She was very proud of the fact that he was considered a prize. She's a healthy, beautiful, intelligent 18-year-old girl, has normal desires of an 18-year-old girl. And Chambers, he has those same desires.
Part of Robert's appeal for Jennifer, he was an example of your classic bad boy. That was attractive to her.
A couple of weeks later, Jennifer and Robert hang out for a while, then they go home.
Not that I'm counting. But isn't this the third date?
I don't know that you can count the night we met as a first date.
Oh, damn.
Then again, Math wasn't always my best subject.
And yes, this is the time that they have sex for the first time.
They're becoming men and women. They happen to like each other. They get together. So they sleep together.
So are you guys like a thing then?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I don't think he's into committing, if that's what you mean.
It really is just about the sex, isn't it?
Is that so wrong?
They slept together a couple of times. They dated. It was very casual. I would say it was totally a physical relationship.
Robert's current girlfriend, Alex, is unaware of his relationship with Jennifer. Meanwhile, he is habitually stealing money wherever he can get it in order to feed his powerful cocaine addiction. And on the fateful night of August 25th, an event will occur that is so shocking, it will instantly catapult the preppy killer into the national headlines.
Just a week before going off to college, Jennifer Levin spent one of her last nights in Manhattan at Dorians. She was hanging out with friends and hoping to bump into Robert Chambers.
Uh-oh, Jennifer, look who's here. Looks like someone's getting lucky.
Kathy, shut up.
But on this night, he's there with his girlfriend.
And probably one of the dumbest decisions of Robert Chambers' life, he brings his girlfriend, Alex, to Dorians, where he knows that it's a possibility for him to run into Jennifer Levin. And sure enough, she's there with her friends.
Jennifer asks the bartender to store her purse. He agrees on the condition that she count her money in front of him. In a crucial detail used during the investigation, the bartender will tell police that her purse contained $40.
So Robert finds himself in a really awkward position where both his girlfriend and his lover are in the same bar. So what does he do? He ignores both of them.
You can't wear the black one.
Hi.
Hi. Anyways, like...
Robert Chambers was with some friends and sitting at a table. She goes over and starts talking to him, and he ignores her. He doesn't seem to want to have anything to do with her. She's upset at his lack of interest in her and is determined that she's going to be the one who walks off with him.
After an hour of drinking, things begin to escalate.
You're a jerk, you know that?
What?
You've been ignoring me for over an hour. This is supposed to be a date.
Will you lower your damn voice, please?
No, I'm not gonna lower my voice.
You're drunk. You're drunk.
I am not drunk. Stop with it.
Hey. I just wanted to let you know the sex we had the other night was the best sex I've ever had in my life.
Here.
She has condoms in her hand, and when he doesn't want to pay attention to her, she throws them at him.
You're gonna want somebody else tonight because you're sure not getting this.
Alec,
What's up, pervert?
I really wish you wouldn't have said that, Jennifer.
Why?
Because you embarrassed me. That's why.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's just, I thought you would be happy to see me.
Again, it harkens back to the kind of group of kids that they were. There's a lot of competition among the women.
She was competitive. She wanted him, and she did not want this other girl to get him. And then Jennifer just waits.
Robert's priority, however, is cocaine.
Hey, I need a half. Dude, you still owe me from when I fronted you last week. Come on, Luke. A quarter, then? You know I'll pay you back. That's it. No more charity, and you owe me big time.
Even in his own confession to me, he told me that he drank an incredible amount of booze, marijuana, cocaine. It's like a lethal combination.
At approximately 4 a.m., with the bar practically closed, Robert approaches Jennifer Levin.
She wanted to have sex with him? Yeah, she had revealed that to some of her friends earlier in the evening. Like, I think I'm gonna hang out, you know.
Rob, what's wrong?
Nothing. Why?
By now, Robert is likely coming down from a coke high, and his behavior is turning a bit odd.
So you're acting kind of funny. And you're treating me like you don't even care that I'm here. Like we never even shared anything together.
I'm sure he had the same desire, but I'm not sure if he could perform physically. And maybe in his mind, he thought he could at the time.
Wanna get out of here?
Okay.
So they get up and leave together, and that's the last time that Jennifer Levin's friends will see her alive.
Rosie? Are you okay?
You don't need blow, do you?
No, sorry.
Oh, that's cool.
Rob, if you'd rather,
No. It's all good.
I can go back. Betsy can give me a ride.
No, hey. I want to be with you, okay?
To some people, it was shocking. They went to Central Park to have sex. It was August, so it wasn't that unusual, okay? So they went to the park.
In the early morning hours of August 26, 1986, Robert Chambers and Jennifer Levin make their way into Central Park. It is the last time that Jennifer Levin will be seen alive.
And here comes this little bicyclist. Coming along the road, this woman looks over and basically sees that's a human being. And where is he? He's sitting on a wall, right behind the museum, with his eyes pierced, the dead body.
As Chambers looks on, investigators arrive at the murder scene. One of them is Detective Michael Sheehan.
Jennifer Dawn Levin, 18 years old, from Soho. All right, let's take a look.
She's half naked. You know, her breasts are exposed. Her genitals are exposed because their skirt's hiked up. And her legs are spread. And the initial feeling of the first detectives who got to the scene, this was a victim of a rape. In retrospect, even when I looked at it, it was a classic organized crime scene where the killer wants the person who finds the body to the naked eye to go, oh my God, that poor girl was raped. When in fact, we know she wasn't. Now I closely examined her, and the marks on her neck were astounding. You know, I had been a cop a long time at that point. I don't think I had ever seen such profound marks. She suffered a couple of real good punches to the face, punches to the mouth. It's amazing her teeth weren't knocked out. Numerous injuries all over the rest of the body. There was even a footprint. So in other words, she was stomped at some point. And we later find a lot of the belongings from her pocketbook strewn in a path right to where she's found.
Initially, investigators don't know exactly what happened. They find her purse, they find her panties about 50 yards away.
Meanwhile, Robert continues to observe, along with an ever-growing number of press and onlookers.
What happened over there? Any idea what's going on?
They found a girl's body.
Oh my God.
All right, everybody, let's clear this area. Come on.
Robert is sitting there so calmly, he doesn't leave the scene until police clear the area and ask him to leave. And then he goes home and takes a nap.
The first statement I think he made was to his friend Alex Legata, who called him and said Jennifer's missing.
Oh, hello. What? Jennifer?
And he said, that's terrible. Where could she be?
Hours after the discovery of the body, Jennifer Levin's grandfather goes to the morgue to make a positive identification.
I'll never forget it. Came down, he took one look, and he collapsed. I mean, anybody who doesn't get choked up with that, hey, this is his granddaughter, for God's sake, you know? And to see her in this condition in a morgue, you know, awful.
By now, news of the Central Park murder has spread.
What attracted the media to the case in the very beginning was a dead body in Central Park.
Everybody knows Central Park. It's almost like saying somebody was killed on the Empire State Building.
This may happen more than people know, but not to someone like Jennifer Levin.
Once it became clear that it was Jennifer Levin who'd been killed, reporters went to the loft in Soho where she lived with her parents, hoping to talk to anybody, to relatives, to neighbors, to friends, to find out what happened to this young girl.
Ma'am, are you Jennifer's mother? Ma'am, is there anything you can tell us?
My daughter is dead! Will you get out of here?
There was television cameras and trucks galore.
Detectives immediately begin questioning Jennifer's circle of friends.
Police start talking to Jennifer's friends and find out that she had left Dorians the night before with Robert Chambers. That was the first connection that authorities had between the two of them.
Who's Robert Chambers? Oh, he's one of our crowd, you know. He's a great guy, you know, because he's not being considered at all as a suspect. He's part of the group. So two of our detectives go to the home of Robert Chambers to ostensibly interview him and find out if perhaps, you know, how did she get home?
Robert Chambers?
Yeah?
We're with the NYPD. Can we talk to you for a minute?
Sure.
When the detectives came to his door, they didn't expect to see him with scratch marks on his face.
Robert later tells detectives that the scratches came from his cat.
He had cuts on his hands. I said, what happened to your hands? Oh, you know, I guess the cat, you know.
And they looked like scratch marks from a human ant.
Detectives escort Robert to the police station for questioning.
He looked as calm like he was in the principal's office. He was going to tell his story and was going to walk out.
Robert denies leaving Dorians with Jennifer or having anything to do with her death. But his story changes several times over the course of the evening.
The problem with Robert Chambers' story is that it kept changing. He said he hadn't left with her from Dorians, and he gave several versions of what could have happened or what he said might happen.
But as each story he tells conflicts with the evidence, detectives become more confident that Robert Chambers killed Jennifer Levin.
The detectives realized that this is the person who caused her death, and they just wanted him to admit that he did it. And he wasn't admitting it. And then finally, he started to admit that something happened, and when he left her, she wasn't moving.
In the final version of his confession, Robert claims that sometime after he and Levin left the bar, she had asked him for rough sex.
He ended by saying that they had had rough sex.
According to Robert, Jennifer tied his hands together with her underwear, straddled him while facing away, undid his shirt and pants, and began fondling him. Robert claims he grew tired of her efforts and told her to let go, but instead, she squeezed his genitals.
What he said, she grabbed my balls and it hurt.
It wasn't enough for Robert Chambers to say that they had had rough sex. He said that she initiated it and wanted rough sex from him.
He was just coldly trying to calculate how he could get out from under this charge. He had no feelings for her at all. If you listen to what he says, he didn't do anything of his own volition. He was following her. She was seducing him. She was dragging him into Central Park. In effect, it was a blame the victim defense, and Chambers blamed Jennifer.
He was claiming that she was attempting to rape him in Central Park. This 18-year-old girl, who was considerably smaller than him, was trying to physically overcome his resistance to these sexual overtures. And I think I said to him, I've handled a lot of cases, but you're the first guy I've heard of that was attempted to be raped in Central Park. And that simply didn't make any sense.
Robert goes on to say that he flipped Jennifer off of him, and the impact of the fall is probably what killed her.
Robert's version of events didn't match the injuries on either of them.
I don't see it happening. This is a little girl.
That's right. You didn't see it happen. I did, and that is how it happened. She had my hands behind my back. She was hurting me, so I reacted instinctively.
And then what'd you do? Did you go get the cops? Did you call for an ambulance? No. You just left her there? I panicked. This is a girl you knew. This is not some stranger. Even if she was a stranger, would you leave a stranger like that in the park? I don't think I would.
But to police, Robert's story doesn't add up. Post-mortem photographs of Jennifer's body show marks consistent with a savage attack as opposed to self-defense.
I saw the autopsy photos. This poor girl is all busted up.
He said, she hurt me during sex. Oh, yeah, how come she's the one with bruises all over her body?
For one thing, Jennifer had marks around her neck that showed that she had been strangled with a substantial amount of force.
His statement doesn't explain the physical evidence and, most importantly, the injuries to him and the injuries to her. In fact, one injury that he had was a broken right hand.
During the video, I kept nudging Steve. So look at his hand. If you see the video of the confession, he's constantly rubbing his hand. In the video, if you had a time lapse, it almost looks like it comes from like a silk glove to Yogi Berra's catcher's mitt. You know, this is way more than a struggle and an accident.
The bruises, scratches, and bite marks seen in Jennifer's autopsy, coupled with the wounds on Robert, tell a different story than the tall tale Robert is pitching.
Detectives aren't buying it. None of his story made sense, and they arrest him and charge him with murder.
But when the press gets word of Robert's tale of rough sex and self-defense, it becomes perfect fodder for tabloid headlines.
The idea of these two very good-looking people possibly having rough sex was all that the tabloids needed.
The headlines were immediately, rough sex in park, and that stimulated everybody's imagination. Rough sex in park, oh, I wonder what that was. And they kept repeating that.
Then the whole story about who her friends were and who his friends were, and the fact that they were in a very popular bar before that, I think it was enthralling to the media.
Late Monday night, they met again here at Dorians, a popular hangout for wealthy prep school students. Police say the two left together around 4:30 Tuesday morning.
In a world of prep schools, money, fashion, and social cliques, Robert Chambers is dubbed the preppy killer by the media.
Robert Chambers became known as the preppy killer, and he was on all the tabloids and all the magazines and all the news shows.
The idea of rich young people getting into some kind of murder case, that was so enticing. It had all the ingredients.
When these phrases, rough sex, started coming out in the news to really deflect attention from Robert's crime, the Justice for Jennifer group got together and started to protest and really to speak out about the damage that those messages were doing to Jennifer's family, to her reputation.
Chambers was clearly blaming her for putting himself in the position where, according to him, he had to kill her. That sparked a lot of publicity and commentary.
This was a loose woman. She deserved what she got. I mean, that's really the message of those kinds of statements. And I think this is a case where those messages really played out in an extraordinarily explicit and public way that was, of course, so hurtful to her family.
In preparing for trial, Robert Chambers enlists the services of high-profile defense attorney Jack Littman.
Chambers hiring Jack Littman caused more publicity, and whether or not Littman was going to have a blame the victim defense.
Now you've got a high-priced, excellent, intelligent, very aggressive defense attorney who knows his business, who was in the Manhattan DA's office homicide unit for many years before he went out to be a defense attorney.
He was thinking that he could get over this case by claiming that he had accidentally killed her. And that's what he ended up saying on the videotape.
In January of 1988, almost 2 years after the murder of Jennifer Levin, the highly anticipated trial of the preppy killer begins. The strategy of Robert's defense team is to effectively put the deceased victim, Jennifer Levin, on trial. But would that strategy succeed?
Did Jennifer Levin deserve to die? And of course, Jennifer Levin didn't deserve to die because of anything she did. He murdered her, and it was up to us to prove that he did it intentionally.
Robert's defense team even alleges that Jennifer kept a sex diary.
Throwing around phrases like sex diary, which actually had no basis in fact, was a way to kind of paint her as a loose woman, as a promiscuous woman.
The judge didn't allow that book, was an appointment book, to be used in the trial. It didn't stop the defense counsel from referring to it as a sex diary, which of course was inaccurate.
He stirred up a lot of this accusation that Jennifer must have been a wild girl. She was never home. She dressed like a little slut. He tried to get that into the mind of the public. And after all, it's the public from whom the jury pool will eventually get picked.
It was a way to kind of turn the jury against her.
Jennifer's family is anguished that she is being portrayed in the media as a sexual predator, somehow deserving of her fate.
Putting aside the day that you hear your daughter's been murdered and found in Central Park, it must have been excruciatingly hard.
And then to see her dragged through the mud, it was like another assault on her and on the family.
The prosecution has difficulty establishing a motive.
I think the problem in the case was that we had to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he intended to kill her. And we had to do that in the face of a confession where he said that he accidentally killed her.
What could have possibly compelled Robert Chambers to kill Jennifer Levin? Based on eyewitness accounts, autopsy results, and a bizarre crime scene, the prosecution pieces together a likely scenario of what happened to Jennifer Levin on the night she died.
I want to be with you, okay?
Oh, that's better. Well, there is something I have to do.
What?
Pee. I'm sorry, I should have come back at Dorians.
Here, let's cut through the park.
We knew that she had drank a lot of water from talking to her friends, and she had to urinate.
I'll just wait over there, yeah?
Yeah, okay, take my stuff, will you?
Okay. Yeah.
With Jennifer's purse in his hand, Robert begins to peruse its contents.
He's rifling to see what he can steal out of her bag. She had $40 left in her bag, and how do we know that? The bartender at Dorians.
But Jennifer catches him in the act.
What are you doing?
Nothing.
She comes down and surprises him.
Are you stealing from my purse?
No.
Are you stealing from me?
No.
She discovered he had taken money out of her purse, and that enraged Jennifer.
Give me my wallet. I saw you take it. Give it to me.
Get out of there.
Oh my God, what is wrong with you?
I'm sorry.
Get away from me.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I'm getting out of here.
Where are you going?
Give me my wallet. Give me my wallet, damn it. How dare you? Do your friends know that you're a freaking thief who hits girls and steals their money?
Where are you going?
I'm going back to Dorian.
I'm not going anywhere.
She confronted him, and she threatened to go back to Dorians and tell the whole crowd about what a bad guy he was. And he just lost control.
Jennifer's cause of death is a combination of strangulation and compression fractures to the neck.
She fought like a wildcat. In the end, it was his rage and his strength overpowered her. Now he's done. Now she's dead. Like, oh my God, she's dead. Oh well. You run and tell the police we had some stupid fight and she died? That'd be an option. He didn't take that option. What he chose instead was, maybe I can make her look like she was a rape victim. Because nobody will ever think that I raped her because we've had sex so many times. We also know that after he killed her, that he removed the earrings and the rings, any kind of jewelry she had. Hikes the brassiere and the blouse to expose her breasts.
Jennifer's body looks as if she's had sex, but there was no evidence that there was sexual intercourse between them. And the police believe he posed that body.
You know, it's clear. That was the work of a real sociopath, psychopath.
Some of those jurors, being in such close proximity to the defendant, saw him differently. He looked like a handsome young, athlete.
He looked so good in court. I met him in court. He was so nice, so polite.
There were some jurors who were infatuated with him, some who were enthralled by him. He looked vulnerable. I think people could look at him without knowing anything about him and think that he was a teddy bear or a vulnerable kind of person.
As the jury goes into deliberations, the prosecution has concerns over its ability to convict.
I would say probably about 5 or 6 days into it, it was clear the jury was going to have a difficult time. At one point, I think 8 days into the deliberations, they were 9-3 for conviction. But that was a soft 9. There were a lot of people who were undecided.
For 9 days, the jury deliberates Robert Chambers' fate, but they never get to render a verdict.
With the jury deadlocked for 9 days, the prosecution is concerned they won't convict the preppy killer and offer him a plea deal to the lesser charge of manslaughter. He accepts.
And in court, he apologizes publicly for what he did.
And I wish to apologize to the family and to her friends for all the trouble that they've gone through. I've never wanted any of this to happen to anybody.
Was the motive a robbery or a desperate attempt to protect his reputation? Although Chambers admits he is responsible for Jennifer's death, the preppy murderer still maintains that it was an accident.
Robert is sentenced to 5 to 15 years in prison.
He got a sweet deal at the end, a real sweet deal.
But a month after he takes his plea deal, a videotape of Robert Chambers emerges. It shows him drunk at a party just a month before the trial began. He's twisting the head off of a doll, and he says, "Oops, I think I killed her," and laughing.
Can you imagine how that must have made her family feel? They had just agreed to 5 to 15 years in prison, assuming that he could get out in 5.
The Levin family files a wrongful death suit against Chambers and are awarded $25 million.
Will they ever see a dime of that money? Probably not.
Robert Chambers is sent to Great Meadow Correctional Facility, a maximum security prison in Comstock, New York.
Robert Chambers was not a model prisoner. He was disciplined for assaulting a guard and for having heroin in his cell.
Robert spends nearly 5 years of his 15-year sentence in solitary confinement.
He wound up doing the full load. He was in for 15 years.
Because of the way he behaved in prison and because of his drug use, he served most of that sentence.
Oh, you want to stay to the Levins now?
And on February 14th, 2003, the preppy killer, Robert Chambers, walks the streets a free man.
It may have been 15 years that he'd been in jail, but the media hadn't forgotten Robert Chambers. So on the day that he was supposed to come out, they were all standing across the street hoping to get a picture or a glimpse of Robert Chambers walking free for the first time since 1988.
Shortly after his release, Chambers gives an interview with 48 Hours Investigates. He claims he is sorry for killing Jennifer Levin, maintaining that her death was not a cold-blooded killing, but an accident brought on after she hurt him first. He also claims he is clean for the first time since 1994.
But old habits die hard with Robert Chambers.
In 2007, Robert Chambers is arrested after selling roughly half a pound of cocaine to undercover officers.
I get a call from somebody in the police department. I'm a reporter at the time. Hey, your boy got arrested. I said, what are you talking about? Chambers got collared. I was like, oh my God.
Arrested with him is Sean Covell, his female friend shown in the 1987 Barbie doll videotape.
His biggest problem throughout history, and to this day, his addiction. He's an addict, and it destroyed him.
All the stuff that he did once he got out of prison makes you realize that he belonged in prison. He belongs there.
His friends and supporters made excuses for him that caused him never to straighten out and figure out how to live his life in a productive way.
In 2008, Robert Chambers is convicted and sentenced to 19 years in prison for dealing drugs. That's a longer sentence than he got for killing Jennifer Levin.
His earliest possible release date is January 25th, 2024. To this day, the exact circumstances of Jennifer Levin's death are still disputed, but the legacy lives on. In 1989, ABC aired The Preppy Murder, starring William Baldwin as Robert Chambers and Lara Flynn Boyle as Jennifer Levin. Jennifer's mother, Ellen Levin, is an advocate for victims' rights and has helped to pass 13 pieces of legislation, including the Rape Shield Law.
One of the laws that Jennifer's mother, Ellen, helped pass in Albany, in the state capital, was to extend the same protections to victims of homicide so that their past sexual encounters would not be open for courtroom discussion.
I would like to see in every school of journalism a sensitivity program to teach the students who will be covering crime victims about what a crime victim suffers.
The sad part is that there is always the opportunity for people to exploit cases, to make splashy headlines, to drag for those who are representing the defendant, to use every opportunity to speak poorly of the victim, to cast doubt on the victim, to imply that the victim somehow wasn't completely innocent. Those dynamics, sadly, haven't changed.
Chambers was a killer, and you could see that in the way he talked about the case. When you've taken many videotape confessions from people who have killed, you see the ones who did it out of passion or an accident, and you see the ones who have that personality that allows them to kill people. And he fit that personality. He was compassionless, remorseless. He was like other killers.